You talk about, like, I like Denver too, but they finished 5 games behind the Chiefs last year, and the Chiefs handed them the last game, right? So that, to me, is like there's a bigger gap to make up than I think that it's easy to get behind Denver. Bo Nix, a young player, not sometimes sometimes the progression with young players is not steady, right?
So this morning on Get Up, ESPN did a segment where they asked, will Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos overthrow the Kansas City Chiefs for the division? And none of the analysts said yes, which is completely understandable. Obviously, the Broncos have to prove it. They had their chance in Arrowhead last season, and they didn't get it done. But this time around, I feel very, very confident. And obviously, I'm biased. I'm going to pick the Broncos every single time. But taking a look at the rest of the league, yeah, it got better, but so did the Broncos. They fixed all of their major issues. The middle of the defense, they gave up what seemed to be 500 rushing yards against the Buffalo Bills in the wild card. Not to mention as well, at the receiver position, Courtland Sutton's a stud, but there wasn't much else. The tight end position was the worst in football, right next to the Indianapolis Colts. So they go out there and they get Evan Ingram. We saw he had a 58-yard catch, of course, over the weekend in the preseason. And then leaps from Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims Jr., Pat Bryant, rookie, who on tape has been an absolute menace. Blocking, receiving, he's just doing it all. And that's exactly why the Broncos drafted him, was because of those very reasons. And then at running back, R.J. Harvey looks to be a lot better than many people thought. I mean, we're thinking about a running back who goes towards the end of the second round and whatever, right? Not exactly. Harvey already looks to be one of the more physical backs in football. And in the preseason, he just makes something out of nothing. That's what he does best. And then, of course, J.K. Dobbins' health is going to be something for him. But I've also been impressed with Jaleel McLaughlin. I thought he looked really good last preseason game. Audric Estime, not so much, the opposite. The offensive line remains the best in football. Just absolutely incredible what these guys continue to do year after year. And something that doesn't get talked about enough in the NFL is when you have the same offensive line and you bring it back and you bring it back and you bring it back, that's a huge advantage, especially with year 2 of Bo Nix. So I absolutely love that. Of course, Sean Payton, the entire staff is back. Defensively is the thing for Denver, though, is they're going to be able to compete with anyone just because of how good this unit is. And we saw that last season, is that the Broncos, they were in every single game. I know the Bills one kind of got away from them. It was a tough place for a team to have to go to Orchard Park. I mean, you could legit argue that's the most difficult place to go and play in football. It's a massive, massive disadvantage for an opposing team. But the Broncos learned from that, and now they look like a completely different team. Preseason doesn't really matter. They are 2-0. They've handled both of their opponents very well. I think the bigger picture here is that Denver believes in themselves. Last season, of course, they win 10 games. Nobody really thought they'd do that. That's cool. But the team feels as if they are legit ready to win a Super Bowl. And Sean Payton even said it himself a couple of weeks ago, is that he's coached 6 or 7 teams that he believed could win the Super Bowl. And he threw this Broncos team into that equation, which is pretty cool to think about because Denver is only going to get better. I'm super excited about these rookies. Of course, talking about Jahdae Barron out of Texas, he flashed on tape. Pat Bryant, who we mentioned a little bit, just with his ability to be a Swiss Army knife, and then R.J. Harvey, his physical, stout running ability. And even if you want to go beyond that, I mean, we could talk about, I'm looking at a guy like in the trenches. It will be interesting to see if the Broncos get anything out of Q Robinson and Savion Jones, 2 guys that are going to be getting after the quarterback. But in terms of what Denver did, they fixed everything they had to. There was a lot of holes in the roster, a lot of things they had to clean up. And Nix's ability, of course, to take that next leap in the playbook is going to be something to keep an eye on. I know it's a cliche to be like, oh, well, this team's going to go as far as the quarterback does, but that's truly what it will come down to. Is I get that, of course, there's always going to be 11 guys on the field, but for Denver, Bo Nix's ceiling will determine the outlook of this team. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have to be Josh Allen, but he's got to be able to make those winning plays, and he's going to have to be able to elevate everyone else around him, especially these skilled players. And from what we've seen in the preseason is Jarrett Stidham, backup quarterback, he's built a rapport with Pat Bryant and with Troy Franklin and with R.J. Harvey. And, of course, we saw that past Evan Ingram. It makes you think that Bo Nix is going to come right into this offense and be very comfortable, and Sean Payton's going to put him into a situation to succeed. And the AFC is a conference that's on the rise. I don't think necessarily we're going to be talking about like the Patriots and the Raiders and sort of teams like that and the Jaguars. Those teams are going to improve, but I think it's relatively the same as last season. The Chargers, the Broncos, look at the Steelers, like those types of teams, they're going to be in the playoffs. You'd have to imagine again, Aaron Rodgers is probably good enough to be able to get it done for the Steelers. But their thoughts aren't on the wild card. Yeah, being the 7th seed is cool and all, but who wants to be the 7th seed? Because then you have to match up with the 2 seed, and that's probably Baltimore, probably Buffalo, maybe Kansas City. Like the Broncos want this division. They want a home field playoff game. Obviously, the best case scenario would be a first round bye, but Denver's not quite there yet. I could be wrong, but I think Denver is a team that's going to win 11, 12-ish types of games, which would be huge. That's a 2-win improvement to that point, and 2-3-win improvement. And is that enough for the division? That's kind of the thing, because the Chargers, they've lost Rashawn Slater. Even with Rashawn Slater, it would have been tough for them to get that. The Kansas City Chiefs probably are going to win around 13 games. I mean, they won 15 games last season, which a lot of people forget. I mean, they didn't win the Super Bowl, so rightfully so. But the Chiefs are going to be tough, but I don't think the Broncos need to put all of this pressure to be better than the Chiefs. No, just be a better football team. I do think within the next couple of years, the Broncos will be the best team in this division. I'd even go as far as saying the best team in this conference. But it's a process. Last season, again, this team won double-digit games. They made the playoffs, and now it's just about taking the next step. Can you win a playoff game, right? And then to that point, we're talking about just taking it one at a time, just one game at a time. Can we get a game better every single season? I think Denver's on pace to do that. When you look at the schedule, opening up against the Titans, and now all of a sudden at Indianapolis, not to say Anthony Richardson's an amazing quarterback by any means, but Daniel Jones, he's going to dump the ball off. He doesn't have that explosive play ability. Certainly, he turns it over more than any quarterback in football. You date back to the past 2 seasons, nobody has a worse touchdown to interception ratio than Danny Dimes. So I think that's a huge win for the Broncos, because they know they just have to keep everything in front of them, come up and tackle. That's what Denver does best. At Los Angeles, that's a massive game. Bengals, Eagles, but all of a sudden you have a lot easier of a stretch. The Jets, the Giants, the Cowboys, but then you got the Texans, the Raiders. Divisional games always tough. Chiefs, bye. Washington, another divisional game against the Raiders. Green Bay Packers, who seem to get hot late every single year. Jags, Chiefs, Chargers. This is not an easy schedule by any means, but I think that's actually a benefit to the Chargers, because they have to look at it in the sense of, hey, look, pretty much every single week we're taking on a very good team. The division is, to this point, the best in football. Like the AFC West is the best team in football. 3 double-digit win teams, a legit contender in the Chiefs every year. And then the Raiders are on the rise with Pete Carroll and those boys and Ashton Jennings. It's going to be a lot of fun for them. I mean, they're hoping at least. Tough schedule, but I like that for the Broncos. I thought last season the Broncos and the Chargers benefited off of weak schedules. But now, no, both those teams got a lot tougher, and it's time to go. Take the training wheels off, of course, and be able to get it done. But yeah, that's how I feel about the Broncos. Let me know if you guys agree, if you disagree. My name is Daily Broncos, and obviously I post Daily Bronco videos. I'm out.